Hello, everybody. Scott Golden Opportunities Coaching, and for this channel, Pro Wrestling Logic here. And I haven't been here for a live event review, TV review in a while. Been just about a month, and hopefully back on track. We're gonna strap the month of July because, well, it's kind of pointless to go back and review completely old stuff in terms of current product anyway. But I am going to try to be more consistent in this month, both with the benefit of the live show reviews as well as the old school reviews. But suffice to say, I have been watching most of the programming, missed a few impacts along the way, missed some AEW along the way, but have watched most of the programming over the last month, and it's just gotten worse and worse. But tonight, I think, from a logic standpoint, I don't know that wrestling has ever been less logical in week-to-week storytelling than the current version of Raw. And to be fair, for those that are new, I've been around as a fan for 32 years, in the business at the independent level as a play-by-play guy for 12. So I've seen a lot, actually too much wrestling to be completely honest. But this is just ridiculous. August 3rd, 2020 version of Monday Night Raw. So they open this show with Tom Phillips, Byron Saxton, and Samoa Joe at your announce table. The idea that Tom Phillips, who is, to me, bland announcer number 37, is the new face of Raw, as he's referred to later in the broadcast, is just disturbing to me. I remember when being the lead announcer on a wrestling show nationally meant something, and it really just is a sign of how far people have fallen and how talent has changed that he is now considered the lead person. Anyway, so the lights flicker to start the show, and the announcers play it off as something somewhat spooky or whatever. Apollo Crews makes his way out for the opener, and the lights go on and off again. They blame it on bad weather, which anybody with the internet or a internet-connected device could easily check the weather in Florida and realize that probably isn't true. So why say something that isn't true when your announcers are supposed to be connecting with your audience? Why not say we've seen some people that aren't normally here, or we've seen some questionable activity today, or anything that would be believable even in the context of a television program. So MVP's out. He starts to cut a promo. He's talking about the benefits of being in the hurt business, among other things. He's talking about he's being the real U.S. champion, and he's going to get the referee to count to 3 again tonight. Crews can go back to sitting and catering. The sitting and catering line's getting old. The first few times I thought it was witty and kind of fun. And now it's like, so human beings eat food. Human beings who travel a lot also eat food. Human beings who have to care about what they look like on television also eat food. We get this point. Somehow, does that mean that main eventers don't eat food? Does that mean that people who are champions only eat vegan food? Like, the line's getting old and it's pointless, and it really doesn't make a whole hill of beans of sense, and it doesn't sell any tickets, although selling tickets is probably not something we even care about anymore. But he acquaints Apollo going and sitting with Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. They say that Apollo Crews has been out with a neck injury. Anyone who even remotely reads a newspaper or listens to a conference call or goes on the internet knows he had COVID. So I don't know why we don't just say he's been under the weather, even if you don't want to acknowledge the concept of him having COVID on TV, I think people can understand the word sick. And so everyone's been sick, and sick is relatable. This is much better than making up a fake injury that doesn't matter. Anyway, MVP works over the supposedly injured neck. Cruz goes for takedowns and takes over early, works over the arm. Lashley and Benjamin pull MVP to the floor, help him regain himself. Cruz with a dive to the outside with no people, except for people at the NXT arena. Then we go to commercial, and the lights are playing Undertaker yet again. MVP has Cruz in a submission when we come back from the break, and Lashley is shown tripping Cruz during the break. That allows MVP to take control. MVP misses a Yakuza kick, and Cruz hits a crossbody, and Cruz gets a near fall off a spine buster. I will say Cruz's spine buster is a thing of beauty, as is his normal finish, that three-quarter spinning powerbomb thing he does. He does not acknowledge a German suplex, but does hit the spinning powerbomb for the win. Lashley jumps in, but Cruz escapes him. Charlie Caruso interviews Cruz backstage. Cruz says he's going to give one of the championships to his children, and he was sick of listening to MVP proclaim himself to be champion, and he says he's going to take the other belt, and he thanks MVP for making the belt and thereby making him look so good. MVP grabs the mic at ringside. He claims that this is an unsafe working environment, so I guess he's never worked in an office that had a power surge before. He says he doesn't care about Cruz's wife or kids and wants a rematch for the U.S. title at SummerSlam. Sad that MVP, who's well over 40, I believe, is one of the most talented men on the program, but it's because he still came up in a time when guys knew how to improvise, and that is valuable. So, there's a bodyguard, shadowy type figure shown in the backstage area. Phillips says that something is going down tonight. The backstage interviewer, Sarah, is with Bayley and Banks, and Sarah asks if they have plans for their titles at SummerSlam. Bayley says that the announcer was in fact boring, and they go to a video package, and obviously they're putting themselves in the position of taking out Kairi Sane, and Asuka interrupts mid-video, and she says that she will get revenge. Asuka is another one of the continually good parts of this program, and she only cuts, primarily Japanese, 75% Japanese, 25% English promos, but you can tell she's happy to be there, and that comes forward, and I think it does make a difference. Bayley and Banks are upset by this, and Shayna Baszler enters and says she's got a problem with Banks sneaking her way to the championship. Baszler lays her out with a single right hand. Now, Baszler, who was pushed so hard on NXT and could have been another, even if we wanted to say Ronda Rousey light or somebody who was regarded as a knockout star, has been squandered over the last several weeks, and tonight really didn't do that much to rebuild her. Kevin Owens is shown, and he's talking to the Iconics. They said that they hear he's holding the Kevin Owens show next, and they thought they'd be good guests. Owens said they would, but tonight he's got other plans. Owens says he's got lots of things going on tonight, including the return of Shane McMahon. He's not here to talk about that. Microphone continues to give him trouble. Owens introduced Ruby Riott and said she's been on a run of not so great luck as of late, and Riott says she's only had one singles win since February, and it came against Peyton Royce last week. So we're supposed to care about a character who can't win. This is not 1995. This is not Barry Horowitz. You can't put television time into somebody, especially a woman who, no offense to Ruby, but she's got average to above average talent, but she gets lost in the current WWE women's roster, and her drawing attention to the fact that she loses all the time does her even more harm. So anyway, she said she's been dealing with toxic people her whole life. She points out that the Iconics are toxic, and she says she's going to put the Iconic BS behind her. They do beep out the vulgarity here. Riot says the only thing that could have made her win over Peyton more valuable is if Liv Morgan had been there to celebrate with her. Morgan comes out. Riot says that when she returned from injury, she came back to the WWE. She didn't even recognize. Most of the same people worked there. It's still a sports entertainment, we can't say wrestling, company. I don't understand where this promo was supposed to go. She wasn't gone for multiple years. She was gone for a while, but nothing really changed. So she loses credibility points for this promo. She puts over the fact that she and Liv has matching tattoos. Good for them. She wants to put back together the Riot Squad. Iconics enter. They do their basic stuff. They make fun of Liv Morgan, Riot. They say they're iconic, and they say that Riot and Liv are not friends like they are. Kay and Royce slap Kevin Owens. Now, this was just stupid. So Kevin Owens is over 250 pounds. And so he stands there and lets two women slap him about, and then asks the other women in the ring who are the baby faces for help. Number one, shouldn't the baby faces who've been insulted for the last several minutes in the promo want to go at the heels themselves? Number two, if you set up a situation where a male, even as an announcer or interviewer, gets struck, there's nowhere for that to go. There's no payoff. And I'm sorry, but even if there were fans in the audience, Ruby and Liv going after the Iconics isn't enough of a payoff to waste slapping someone like Kevin Owens in this angle. Anyway, the payoff is weak at best. We come back from commercial. Ruby and Liv defeat Billie Kay and Peyton Royce. Kevin Owens does commentary. Kay and Royce use some neck breakers. They work over Riot. Morgan gets what is at best a lukewarm tag. Hits some clotheslines. And Billie Kay tags in. Gets rolled up for the pinfall. Kay and Royce attack Morgan immediately after the bell. Riot saves her. They hit. She hits a double STO on Kay, and they left together. Riot Squad is back in business, and if it didn't work the first time as a major thing, why would it work now? Anyway, announcers throw to Charlie Caruso, who reports that a truck is being overturned backstage, and yet we haven't called, the police, the FBI, some sort of law enforcement agency. We just acknowledge that it's loud when people turn trucks over. And they say that the announcer says that this may have something to do with the flickering lights and other production issues on this evening. Gee, you think. One thing I hate about the announcers in these roles is they're made to sound so rehearsed and scripted. Like if somebody was flipping a truck over at your work or in your neighborhood, you wouldn't go, gee, they flipped over a truck. You'd go, hey, what is that? What in the world's going on here? This is insane. I've got to call somebody like the police. and you'd have a natural reaction. And this angle has been hurt by lack of natural reaction. Anyway, MVP approaches and tells Charlie that he couldn't believe she's reporting on all this stuff that's falling over and falling down around her. She does, however, confirm before we go into the second hour that the MVP versus Apollo Crews match will happen at SummerSlam. Benjamin enters, and he tells MVP that someone stole the 24/7 championship. MVP and Benjamin leave, and MVP promised to teach whoever stole the title that you don't mess with the Hurt Business. Although the Hurt Business, they may be powerful, but they're not very intelligent. Why would you leave your championship in a place where it can be stolen in the first place? Anyway, McIntyre makes his way out. McIntyre reminds us all that Orton says he's better than The Rock, better than Steve Austin, better than everybody that he wants to be. And at one point in both their lives, Vince McMahon has said that they were the guy. McIntyre says that the difference was that Orton was a second and actually a third generation superstar, and he'd been helped and been handed opportunities with a silver spoon. He said that people cleaned up his literal crap, which actually did happen in some ribs. Anyway, and that Orton had been left behind in some ways and should have been fired way more times than Drew ever has. To my knowledge, Drew has been fired once. So even if Orton was to have been fired double that, yes, in fact, that is a lot more. Orton entered with Ric Flair. He told Drew that last week he respected him, and that's not enough for Drew. Orton says that Drew was right. He should have been fired long ago. He wasn't, because he's the real chosen one. Or in reality, firing a guy with that much natural talent in a drought of finding other natural talents probably seemed like a really bad idea. Drew said he's going to shoot with Randy. Gee, the 1.5 million people watching at home really care about insider terms. Not. Anyway, so he says that he watched the Undertaker documentary, and he says that Orton was the most interesting part. Orton mentioned that Taker dragged him to his level, and Drew said that Orton has never pulled anyone up. He's never done anything for anybody else, and he said that Orton could have done it for him 10 years ago when he was so far from home and losing everything and dealing with his mother being sick, but Orton did nothing. Basically, Drew calls Orton selfish, and Drew has a stack of receipts that he wants to get right in the face of Randy Orton, and he will do it at SummerSlam. I don't know. And again, partway through this promo too, Drew reminds us for the 787th time that he was fired before, and I don't want to hear that from the champion. I don't want to hear that from the guy that's supposed to be leading us through the pandemic. It's fine they did it once. It's cool for a backstage story. If you have to do it a second time because it furthers an angle, that's fine, but hearing it more than twice or three times maximum makes it lose impact, one, and makes your top babyface, who really I do believe has some good points still left in him, ultimately makes him look like a whiny little wimp. So Nia Jax is backstage. She's talking to WWE official Pat Buck, and then we see Owen backstage with Riot and Morgan. He's giving them advice, and Ric Flair wants to have a word with him. Flair's very clear that he says everyone is high on Kevin Owens, but he's concerned about him. He says Owens helps others too much. Owens says he's heard what Rick's saying, but he's trying to blaze a different path through wrestling. He's heard a lot of people done a lot of bad things and doesn't want to do that anymore. He says he's being the person that Randy Orton could be if he cared. That's a little insider-ish and might get some oohs and ahs from the right crowd. Anyway, Ric Flair said that if Owens was more like Randy, he'd be the one getting the championship match at SummerSlam. Then Owens puts out a challenge to Randy Orton for next week. Nia Jax is in the ring with Pat Buck. They show the attack from last week. Jax says there's millions of people that look up to her, and she challenges Buck to a match. So let me get this straight. A female fighter in 2020 is advising a man who does not wrestle professionally at this point in his career, he's an office staff member, to fight her on national television in an intergender match, at which point the office staffer would get what exactly? Like, this is just so stupid. Anyway, Buck says he can't do this. He also says he only came out there to set this up because he had heard she was going to apologize. And then Pat says, let's get out of here. Let's go talk in private. She continues to taunt him and offer him an opportunity to wrestle. And he says that she has, in fact, been suspended indefinitely without pay. Where's the payoff in this? Does anybody care? Is this supposed to be insider? Because many people are calling for Nia Jax to be removed from television legitimately for her history of hurting others. Only time will tell, but there's no reason that any of this should have been on my television screen. Anyway, R-Truth runs the ring with the 24/7 championship. He's chased by a group of ninjas, and Shelton Benjamin. Tozawa rolls outside with Benjamin, and they go after Truth. Tozawa climbs back in, and Benjamin gets a near fall. Benjamin hits a power bomb on Tozawa. Benjamin hits a DDT on Truth. Ninja jumps in and went after Benjamin. Benjamin, MVP, and Lashley brawled with the ninjas on the floor. Wait, I thought the ninjas were supposed to be heels. I thought the Hurt Business was supposed to be heels. So now we don't even have a clue as to who does what where. Tozawa hits Truth with a senton, pins him to win the title in nothing segment. Although it is what it is. Shane's backstage in what looks like a knockoff between Pit Fighter from the old Super Nintendo days, Fight Club from the Fight Club movie. Basically, it's a fighting environment with a bunch of people gathered around a ring with no ropes. That's basically what it amounts to. He says he'll be back with something at 10 o'clock, and that two guys are grappling in the ring. The announcers show a recap of the Dominic Mysterio mess with Seth Rollins. Sarah interviews Dominic, and she wants to know why Dominic would put himself in this much danger by always coming to Raw and facing off, or trying to face off with Rollins. Dominic says people probably think he's crazy, and they're really going to think he's crazy when he challenges Seth to a match at SummerSlam. They replay the Shayna Baszler angle from earlier in the night, and Baszler and Banks are out next. Now, the Dominic thing. Again, we're stupid. So, let's see here. His father is currently recouping from having his eye plucked out of his head by a cult-leading masochistic fellow who likes to injure people's eyes. Technically, Dominic has no contract with the company that we've been informed about. We have not seen him wrestle in a competitive match. So how does he get to make a request for a match at SummerSlam and have it granted at all? Inquiring minds want to know these very basic things. Anyway, so back to Shayna Baszler and Sasha Banks. Banks slaps Baszler, goes after her. Some basic wristlock takedowns and series of kicks by Baszler. She uses a crucifix for a near fall. Baszler with an armbar, and Banks gets the rope. Bayley takes Baszler, which allows Banks to get control back. Banks hits a cross body off the second rope, and Baszler rolls through, landing on her feet, and hits a backbreaker. Baszler goes for the Coquina clutch. Banks escapes, and Banks uses the bank statement, and then they trade high kicks. Asuka runs out, attacks Bayley, and the bell rang. We don't really know why. I guess there's outside interference, even though it's not directed at the champion for the moment. Anyway, Charlie goes into the ring with Asuka post-commercial, and Charlie asks Asuka for an update on Kairi Sane. Basically, Asuka says that Kairi is gone, but Asuka is here. Bayley is here, and Sasha Banks is here. She wants a rematch for the Raw Championship at SummerSlam. Eventually, that match will come to be, I suppose. Their first one wasn't horribly wonderful, so hopefully they do a better job at what used to be the second biggest show of the year. Maybe third if you're more a Rumble fan. Anyway, Baszler's still in the ring. She wants to fight Asuka. She doesn't want to fight Asuka yet, but does want Asuka to win. She'll be cheering for her, rooting for her, because she wants to be the one to take Asuka down and take the championship from her. Believe it or not, this was well done. Banks and Bayley come back out. Banks says Asuka can have her rematch if she beats Bayley next week. So now the brand split, not that it meant anything to begin with, but means even less, because now we have Bayley challenging Asuka for what should be, if Asuka could challenge for it, the SmackDown Championship, Ladies Championship, but that's not going to happen. So Angel Garza is with Demi Brunette from The Bachelor backstage. They do some flirtatious interplay between them. Andrade and Zelina Vega enters the scene. Vega says she knows who Demi is and she doesn't belong here. She said that Garza and Andrade have business to handle. Shane's shown in the Fight Club environment. Somehow there are dancers in the Fight Club environment. This looks like we're trying to recreate an 8-bit video game from like 1992. Anyway, after the break, Shane welcomes us to Raw Underground. Very little rules, lots of excitement and chaos. Shane introduces Dabba-Kago for a fight. He did not introduce the opponent. So Kato wins a couple of brawls with ref stoppages. Basically, all this is camera cuts and like an NBA Jam on fight steroids kind of thing. Anyway, Samoa Joe is doing his job, putting over the Fight Club concept. They do say that Shane is lining up another fight. These fights look like knockoff MMA, which is bad, because then when the wrestlers go back into wrestling rules, why the ones that win wouldn't be able to knock out all their opponents in about 13 seconds doesn't make sense now, does it? Anyway, Ford refers to Raw as the longest running episodic TV show in history. Ford and Dawkins got a promo. They do get serious mid-stream here. Dawkins says Garza attacked Ford last week, and that's like attacking his family. For the tag team champions, this is just a weak story, especially going into, again, the second or third biggest pay-per-view of the year. Angel Garza kind of defeat, and so or about to fall or about to get a victory over Angel Dawkins. So I'm sorry. Anyway, so Ford takes a sip from his red cup, and there's something wrong with it. Anyway, Dawkins sent Garza to the outside into the barricade before the commercial. After the break, Dawkins hits a drop kick for a near fall. They cut to the Bachelorette girl backstage. Dawkins nails Garza. Garza needs a better story here. He also needs better opponents to highlight his skills because he's being wasted here. Garza hits a drop kick off the second rope. Ford feints on the outside. Dawkins was distracted, and Garza hits him with a drop kick for the pin. This looks like the old kind of pass out 1995 concussion angle, but it's so much worse than that, and not in a good storyline kind of way. Worse as in cringeworthy. The match we joined already in progress. Somehow during the break, so about 2.5 minutes, Ford gets medically cleared to compete after passing out before the commercial break. So that decision's made in less than 3 minutes, folks. Crack medical staff there. Anyway, Ford goes through the first part of the match with nothing wrong. Ford hits a drop kick and knocks Andrade off the top rope. And Ford hits a dive over the top rope. So let's see. Less than 5 minutes ago now, he's passed out and looking like he's ready to convulse. Somehow, within that 5-minute time span, he's regained his balance enough to do some sort of, high-flying maneuver. After the tope, Ford shook the ropes and collapsed in the bell rang. Referee stoppage. This finish is horrible. Anyway, Murphy's backstage. He's watching a video of the attack on Aleister Black. Rollins entered, told Murphy he made the right choice. And he's proud of him. Says it's time to focus on the future. Murphy wants to know if there's been any thought given to the proposal by Dominic Mysterio. Rollins smiles and walks away. Shane welcomes us back as one of the Viking Raiders. This one is Eric. Faces this tough kid. And they go for about 15 seconds before Eric wins via ref stoppage. These are just getting goofy. Anyway, Raw announcers talked about the weird Ford issues. Charlie's outside the trainer's room with an update. Garza approaches Charlie. He says that Charlie looks scared, but not to worry. He says that people like he and Charlie with full hearts can be worried, but it turns into love and fun. He gives Charlie a rose. Where this is going, we have no idea, and I wish they'd figure it out soon. Anyway, Andrade and Zelina Vega approach. Vega talks down to Charlie as per doing so every week. Anyway, Vega said they're concerned about Ford, and she wants to know what happened to their tag team match at SummerSlam. Dawkins exits the trainer's room, and it looks as though Ford has been poisoned. So he has passed out, come back to life, and been revealed to have been poisoned all within a quarter hour. Poisoned. Now, why aren't we calling the FBI? Why aren't we calling the CIA? Why aren't we calling the local police? Why aren't we calling the state police? Why aren't we calling somebody to handle the fact that there was an attempted murder on a live television show? Now everyone's going to say, but it's just acting. But at the same time, if the fights are supposed to suspend your disbelief, the angles should too. Anyway, Bianca Belair comes in. She's not happy. They do a pull-apart brawl here. And then 5 masked figures throwing fire at the generator, exploding it, and causing trouble earlier in the evening. Why they do this, we don't know. Charlie approaches the Hurt Business backstage. She asks about their troubles tonight. Benjamin asks if it's a coincidence that all this is happening on the night that Raw Underground begins. It's called a stunt. MVP decides that the Hurt Business will make their way to Raw Underground, which I guess is somewhere else in the same building. Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton, and Asuka and Bayley are both announced for next week. There is a video package with the Rollins-Mysterio feud. Rollins and Murphy come to the ring for promo. Rollins says he's addressed all of this before. He has some housekeeping to take care of, however. Rollins turns his attention to Tom Phillips. He asks Phillips if he thought he was a professional. He berates him for the next several minutes. Says that last week he was very biased in his support of Dominic Mysterio in attacking Rollins, which, for the record, those cane shots given by Mysterio were completely brutal and youch. Anyway, Rollins says it's time to find a new voice for Raw. I couldn't agree more. Murphy is told to take care of it. Samoa Joe steps up. He steps away. He says no one was laughing more than he was last week. He says no one's taking out his announce partner. And apparently we're going to get a Joe versus Seth Rollins program at some point. Joe is shown unbuttoning his shirt cuffs before the commercial break. Anyway, and then Joe is still on the outside when we come back from the break. Dominic runs in with a kendo stick. He sent Murphy to the outside with the kendo stick shots. Rollins missed with a chair shot and ate a 619. Dominic then hit a crossbody off the post onto the floor on Murphy. Rollins and Murphy run away, as cowards are wont to do. And this is probably the best thing on the program at all. Phillips remained quiet for the rest of the segment after he was verbally attacked. And they throw to one final Raw Underground segment. Dolph Ziggler's in the ring. He's got some random non-named individual in a rear naked choke. Hurt Business enters the Raw Underground set. MVP takes the mic and tells Shane that the Raw Underground is now under new management of the Hurt Business. Lashley steps in the ring and handles 3 or so different interactions with various unnamed talents. He hits a right hand and throws some people around. MVP steps in the ring, issues an open challenge. Small guy answers. MVP uses a judo throw to take him down before hitting some punches. Benjamin makes a challenge, quickly defeats his challenger. Hurt Business then laid waste to members of the crowd. Shane tells MVP, Lashley, and Benjamin anything goes here and that they can stay as long as they want. MVP enters with ladies and gentlemen, the Hurt Business is here and business is booming, and we close the show. I don't know how this show can get any less enthralling. They have good talent, they don't know how to use them, and it just gets worse week by week. Anyway, I'll be back with more stuff. I am going to cover the ladies tournament over in AEW. I also did start the World Class Championship Wrestling Review Series, where we go episodically from the first week in 1982 through the entire show. So if you're an old school fan like me and need to cleanse your palate from this junk, it might be worth giving it a listen. Anyway, till next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.